Welcome everyone to another episode of Spirit Coffee Talk. So happy, bless you.
Great start.
So
Strong start.
today we're going to talk about Mercury
sorry.
in the microwave, as per what just happened. So we are the mediums and channelers, or some of them, of Avalon Spirit. And, I'm going to just say this will probably be a bumpy one because we're talking about Mercury retrograde. And Mercury just went into retrograde
On
Tuesday,
the 13th.
13th.
third day,
Yeah.
whatever day that was,
Wednesday.
Yeah. So
Right after the new moon on the 12th.
right. Yes.
We've
And
had
the
a
12,
lot
12.
of like astral involvement in this last week.
Yeah. And so, as we always mention, we chat before we start recording and, we always check in. And I think all of us, we've talked over a couple of weeks of how bumpy the energy has been, how intense the energy has been. There's been lots of ups and downs, lots of triggers, lots of physical symptoms. I know we also, I was having like a literal physical meltdown yesterday, and there was 2 X-class solar flares that came through yesterday. So we also have that, lovely little piece of information that came through. But all to say, there's a lot happening. And so we were going to chit chat about specifically Mercury retrograde, but I think what will likely come is all of all of the things.
I tell you, with this increase of solar flares as well, wild.
Mhm. But
I didn't know that
cycle,
until now, and it makes so much. Yesterday, I was like, I wonder if there's crazy solar flares. There's got to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I was asking the same thing too, because I was so irritable yesterday. Like I'm usually really quite calm and I can roll with things. Like it's something I've learned how to do in my life is roll. And like things come up and it's like, okay, what are we going to do? And da, da, da. I'm not saying I do that perfectly, but that is usually my way of going about things. But I was so internally snippy with everything. And I was like, and I'm listening to my own internal monologue. I was like, holy smokes, what is your problem? Like, who are you? And then, like, later in the day, I was like, there's got to be a solar flare or something because this is so out of character for me. It's almost laughable.
And when all the
Yeah.
normal things don't work, right?
Yeah.
I had a bath, went for a walk, did some yoga, meditated, I smudged myself. I even like there's like all the checklist things that I like insert to help move forward. And then of course, all the like stuff that comes with this time of year and how busy it is. I'm like, I am not happy. This is not making me happy. This is
Yeah.
not fun for me.
So just real quickly, and I know we're going to come back to Mercury retrograde, but with the solar flares, let's just recap like why solar flares are so irritating is essentially it is such a massive burst of energy that comes from the sun. And then if you picture your aura kind of like this like malleable, movable membrane, and the energy from the sun comes in and like punches the membrane, punches your energetic aura, and it has to like ripple around. So essentially, when solar flares happen like that and they hit you, you're like a gong, right? Like you hit the gong and it's like basically is what's happening to your energy, which is why it makes you so like reactive or sensitive or whatever your way of reacting to it is, and why the standard things don't work because you're sitting in a heightened frequency, which is there to technically help us ascend, grow, shed energetics, sometimes physical things, sometimes sickness comes with that, all of that. But it is this like reverberation that causes whatever your reaction is. So it's
Do you
something you
think
have to
you
like
could
ride
change
it
your
out.
vibration enough to change the reaction, like consciously? Because
I would
clearly
imagine so.
I respond with fire. Fire added with fire equals greater fire. I feel like I wish I could respond with like water and just like cry and then walk to my room and close the door and just sleep for hours.
But you know
Would
what?
that be nice?
I bet
But
you
then my
though,
whole family would fall apart. So then that can't happen, right?
but I bet you here's the thing, is like I bet you can, but considering we're also in Mercury retrograde, we also just had the new moon. It is this time of year. You're a mama of 4. I mean, there is so much going on
Mhm.
that you're already kind of hitting your upper limit of functional, but peaceful functional, like I'm still in it, I'm doing great, I'm being organized. And then you take a solar flare that just like gongs you right out
Yeah.
of there, like that's that upper limit where it's like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if we're already with buzzy energy anyway, because of the time of year, then you add that onto it. And it's like, maybe normally it wouldn't have been that bad, but because you've already have a healthy dose of fire and spice that's happening in your aura, that you add that on, and it's just like no return.
Well, and we've also had months of like trigger energy too. So even from like a human perspective, it's like we get trigger stacked where it's just like thing after thing after thing, it becomes hard to bounce back. And maybe we
Totally.
do, but it's just a slower process.
So that's the thing. Okay, so we had a pretty good I say pretty good new moon. The new moon I thought it was going to be a lot more chill than it was. It wasn't as chill as I was hoping, but it did illuminate opportunity almost. Like it was like it gave us a glimpse of what opportunity could lie in front of us, and gave us this like motivation or an extra little push to see what is available and how to align ourselves with believing that it's available for us. So like changing our thought pattern to be able to align with our greatest good. So that was kind of the Sagittarius new moon, which was nice. And then it goes into Mercury retrograde, and I gotta say, because that's like our theme today, Mercury retrograde for me is always like dun dun dun. But I believe that that's because I've given it that meaning
Absolutely.
instead of actually like leaning into the gifts that it can give us. And I feel like when I heard Mercury retrograde was coming in for the holidays, my son's birthday is the 18th, and then there's Christmas, and then my daughter's birthday is the 30th. So we got like 2 birthdays, Christmas Eve, all this stuff, New Year's in Mercury retrograde. I'm like, oh my God, like I won't make it out of this season. But then do you guys remember when we learned, I think it was like last year at this time when we were in Maui, I don't remember though, when we learned about the gifts of Mercury retrograde, on like it gives us permission to be like, hey, we're going to have to put a pin in this and check it out later, because this is not the right time. Like if you walk to a store and you're like, I got this and this and this and this to do, and the store's like closed, come back when it opens on Monday, you can like fiercely be frustrated, break in, and you're not going to do that. Or you can just be like, oh,
coffee talk told me to break in.
You're open now.
right. And so that's what I mean about forcing against it, right? Or like Mercury retrograde could be that little sign on like the door of the holidays being like, all the other excess stuff, let's just put a pin in it, come back when an opening hours, when you have more ability to deal with it. Because extra spice and extra solar flare with the holidays, it's like, okay, humanity needs a little sec. Let's give it a Mercury retrograde, not to add more problems. It'll add more if you resist it, if you try to break in and try to do it anyway. But Mercury retrograde actually gives you opportunity to step back, step away, and be like, okay, this is not the best time to like roll out my new idea for this online course. This is not the right time to get all this functional stuff done with any electronics. It's not the right time to like set up whatever checklist stuff above and beyond, because then that's resisting the energy of Mercury retrograde, which is not going to let you do it. It's the sign that says like, no, it's not going to happen. And so I think that's why people get so frustrated, is because we're such a go, 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 go mentality, that Mercury retrograde is actually a gift for humanity to slow down.
Totally. It's also a really great time to like tend to your own affairs. And what Spirit is showing me is like it's a great time to clean out your closet. It's a great time to like go through all your clothes, or go through your kitchen, and do you need like things like that, things that we don't usually have time to do, things that are really introspective and kind of calming, but when you go through it, you make more space. Like it's a good time to like make space, step back, and like reset the stage for when
Mm,
things happen again when it's over, like when the movement
mm.
comes back.
I
And so
love that.
yeah, and I found this Mercury retrograde when I heard that it was coming again. I was like, you know what? Yeah, like I'm going to embrace this slow down phase like you're talking about. And I'm going to embrace that. Like, what are the things I can do within my home, within me that are peaceful, but like cleansing or
Totally.
renewing and, connected into comfort. And like, I can take all pressure off of having to do, or create or whatever. And so it's neat when you can reframe it because I don't think we need to fear Mercury retrograde.
I don't think so either. And I think it's no mistake that it came right the day after a new moon in Sagittarius, which opened the door and the stage for allowing for that extra space to be made. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm finding a big piece of it too, and I actually didn't really have the perception of it until we've started this conversation, but really noticing oftentimes it's like we talk about the technology issues in Mercury retrograde and like the busyness and we want to slow down. Communication is another big place that Mercury retrograde can impact. And I feel like this week, especially, I'm like speaking different languages than the person that I'm speaking to. It's like there's so much miscommunication. There's so much, and what I'm noticing too, not even just in myself, but with other people in that I'm in conversation with. There's this real easy there's a super fine line in conversations that we're walking, and if there's any sort of miscommunication, that spiciness underneath the surface is like quick to come up. I was having a conversation with someone this week and like I went into it thinking like, oh, this is going to be like easy breezy, we're just da da da, like had no concern about it, and it was not the vibe of the
No.
conversation. And I've afterwards I was like, what just happened? Like I that felt really kind of spicy. They felt a little prickly to me. It felt like there was some resistance. I'm quite surprised by that. And underneath the surface, it was like I think the miscommunications are poking at different things. And so I think for me, one of the readings that I had this week, there was a some talk about conversation, and spirit kept emphasizing like any conversations that you're having, going into that like calm undercurrent heart space and just staying there as best you can in the conversation. And if you're noticing a trigger, or you're coming into a conversation with fear or frustration or that edginess,
Mhm.
really trying to course correct back, because it's if it's triggering something, it's probably not actually something to tend to. It's more just the
Yes.
the the rubbing up against. It's not. I think we've gotten really used to like, oh, there's a trigger, I need to go into that, I need to look at that and do the work, and that's great for our self-development as humans. But I feel like within Mercury retrograde, it's more just like fiery match lighting versus actual
Mm.
triggers to go into. And if we can notice that's coming up, ooh, that felt sticky, ooh, we didn't communicate very clearly there, oh, it seems like we kind of got into a disagreement about something that we're actually on the same page about. I don't know why we're arguing about this thing or disagreeing about this thing. Might not actually be a trigger right now. It's more just like coming back into that heart space, into the calm, the undercurrent where you can find it, and just maybe not venturing into super big conversations unless you're feeling really resourced too, because sometimes we have to have
I
them, right?
agree.
And we can't, can we put a pin in this until Mercury's at a retrograde? Like that's not always possible. So resourcing yourself big time before you're having any conversations like that.
I
Mhm.
really agree, Elyse. I really do. Because just like sometimes for the women out there, if you experience coming of the heightened emotions during PMS time, doesn't mean they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. They're very valid, but they're showing up extra heightened when you have those, like the oceans kind of pull back and you can see everything on the surface, right? So everything is going to feel huge, or it does. And it doesn't mean that it's any bigger than any other time of the month. It just means, hey, this hasn't been dealt with yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean it has to be dealt with in the same significance in which it showed up with. So if it shows up in Mercury retrograde, like this, like you said, like the communication stuff and like the triggers is coming up in heightened awareness with this, the energy of retrograde can bring it to your attention, but it doesn't hold the frequency that, like you said, that allows you to work within it in that energy. You know, it's like, don't solve a problem in the same energy in which it was created. Not to say that it was created in that, like, but that's where it's being held energetically right now. So you can be like, okay, I gotcha. I hear you. I hear that this hasn't been, you know, dealt with, or this still holds a place in my energy, but I will come back to it. Write it down in your Mercury retrograde things that have come up.
Bring forwards.
Right. And so then you can acknowledge it. It's been acknowledged and be like, okay, now you can just like chill because I've acknowledged it and we will come back to it when the energy is aligned for me to be able to work through this. And then it gives you a hot sec to think about what you want to do, what conversation you want to have. Is it personal? Is it with somebody else? Lots of times the conversation with somebody else isn't as beneficial as you might think. So
Especially
you might
in the
want to work,
holidays.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it goes direct again on the first. So yeah, like this is not the season to be able to go face to face with the trigger. Great point, Elyse. I love that. I love that.
I love the analogy. It's like universal PMS.
It is
Because if you think
universal
about it,
PMS.
it's like, so, you know, when your cycle starts, you need to like, you're a little grouchy, you don't feel great, everything feels a little clunky, maybe your body doesn't feel amazing. What do? Ideally, we're like slowing down, we're cocooning, we're tending to self, we're resting, we're,
Yeah.
you know, doing things that feel really nourishing. So,
Yeah. Introspection.
universal PMS.
I love it. I agree.
Retrograde. It's universal PMS. I love it.
Ah,
You know,
well,
I did do a lot. I used to teach course for women on how to work with their cycles. And that was exactly the same thing. Was the week before your moon days start is when your most spice is brought to the surface. But it's not that this is like, it doesn't like it's fake emotion. It's just heightened because it's the stuff that hasn't been visited properly over the rest of the year cycle, right? And so then all of a sudden exposure, you're feeling everything times 10. Well, that's Mercury retrograde too. It's the same thing. It's an opportunity to lean into what you still need to take a look at. Doesn't mean you get into it then. It's just so that you have the knowledge, because if it didn't bring it up with so much intensity, you're not going to see it. Maybe you haven't seen it over the last cycles, right? It's been overpassed by other things. But when it comes up so much, it's making you look at it, but not dealing with it in that same energy. And like you said, creating space in your life to be able to hold the energy needed to take care of business when things chill out a bit. Right?
yeah, totally.
Ginette, any
Oh, Mercury.
last?
No, honestly, I don't. And I was even kind of like, I have nothing more to say. I was like, really? I always have more to say. I don't have anything more to say because I think it's so beautifully said, and it is valuable to keep Mercury retrograde simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, and it doesn't have to be spun into a fear narrative of like, uh-oh, you're screwed. Like I hear that so much in different videos and stuff, like Mercury's here, too bad for you. We're all going to be screwed anyway. Like, and it's just so negative, and it's just spinning the wrong energy. And so I love how we're talking about it here, because it's an opportunity to let go of the reins and take the pressure off. And so I think that's why I feel I'm like, yep, you got it.
Yep.
There it is.
I'm going to pull a couple cards for the
Yeah.
collective over the holidays and Mercury retrograde. Next week,
As-
we're coming into solstice. That's a whole different bundle. So we got solstice within Mercury retrograde, but that's a whole different like bundle of energy. What were you going to say, Elyse?
As you're pulling, Spirit was just saying a piece of this, right? It's the holidays. It's busy. We've got family. We've got a million things and parties and Christmas concerts and all the things, and that's can be wonderful. And paired with this desire for space and, you know, potential for miscommunication and da 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 da, really honoring as best you can your boundaries and what you need. And I always like to reframe. There's a quote by guy named Prentice Hemphill, and it says, boundaries are the distance in which I can love you and myself simultaneously. So we don't have to use boundaries as like, get out of my space, I don't want to talk to you. Sometimes that is what it needs to be, but it can also be like, I'm exhausted and I'm not going to stay at this family dinner until 11 p.m. I love you all, but I'm going to see you tomorrow. I had this conversation with my mom. Like, we got like 4 family dinners. I can't, my energy cannot, cannot sustain that much, conversational time with people. My introverted self needs to like go home and recharge. So love you all. See you tomorrow. We'll chat again then. I'm going to go sleep. And so where you can, again, I know it's tricky, but where you can honor your boundaries from a loving space where you can love yourself and you can love all the people around you and the people that you're spending time with, family, friends, whoever it is, I think is going to be really important. And that is a practice in and of itself. So, having some grace with yourself if you're not able to stick with them as you wish you could, but trying to keep that front of mind, because
Ooh, is that ever tough? Over the holidays? Because everybody has a level of expectation.
Yep.
Everybody.
And that's where I think if we can bring that love piece under it, of like, I realize maybe you're disappointed that X, Y, and Z, and I love you, and I hope you can understand why I need this for myself. And can we find something in the middle? Because it is hard, and you're right. There's so much expectation. Yeah, it's a tricky time of year for all of that. Of course, this would be the tie-up to 2023. Easy breeze.
Yeah, totally. What were the cards, Lisa?
Okay, so the Queen of Pentacles, which I just love because it's kind of like the queendom. I love in the sense that we were talking about the kind of like universal PMSing, where the wisdom lies within you, and there's like a richness and a connection to all through the divine in the Queen of Pentacles. And I just feel like look at her. Like, she's such a queen. I love this one. And she's by herself, right? She's outside, she's by herself, and she is just fine with it. She's absolutely fine with that. So retreating a little bit and gathering up your own vibe. You know what I mean? Like the Queen of Pentacles, such great individual energy. And then I got the Fool card. And here's what's interesting. I got the Fool. I put it back. I was like, no, that's not right. I got the Fool again. I'm like, yeah, as if. I put it back and then it jumped out. So clearly the Fool is meant to be with this. I pulled 3. So it's gathering up your energy, right? And then the Fool card is like, what I got from this, please enter in, Ginette, if any, or Elyse, both of you have any, because this is obviously important. This has jumped out like all morning, but I really think this is starting fresh from a new perspective, like tying up 2023 in all the energetic framework that we're going to have over the next 2 weeks. Once we gather up our energy as an individual, we gather up our energy where we can like come from our most authentic place and be like, okay, this is where I'm starting from. Gone are the days of where I put myself behind everybody else's needs. Gone are the days when I ignore my needs and I ignore my red flags, or I ignore all the things because other people need me. No, it's like the Fool is starting on the path after we've recalibrated from the Queen. This is where we start our new path. And this is really about 2024 as well. It's like, it's really letting all those old stories, those old influences go. And we are on a new path, which we really are in so many ways. And then I got the 10 of Pentacles. And look at them. They're all celebrating, kids running around. It's like, no way.
I pulled the same one this morning, and Spirit showed me the Fool in my head when I was shuffling.
No way.
Yeah, for
because
real.
when we can collect our energy and we can like get to our own queendom, our own individual power. And like for the men watching, it's not about it being you're a man. So it's like, so it's different. This is about personal power. This is about coming together and gathering up everything that you need and knowing that you have your own individual power in this. And it's like, okay, now I'm set straight with all the things I need and that strength. I'm starting fresh. Here I go on my path, and all is well. Watch you reap the rewards of all of this. And I'll tell you a little story. You see this geometric kind of shape here. Do you guys know what that is?
Yeah, tree of life.
Yeah, it's the tree of life. I didn't know that.
Mm.
And so when I went into a channel, I've been getting these like sacred geometry shapes that have just come through. And I did this because I was trying to channel for like the upcoming energy. And I did this with pen in my notebook, and I took a picture and sent it to Ginette. And then I looked it up to see if I could actually find if it was anything. And sure enough, it was a freaking tree of life, and it shows up in the 10 of Pentacles, which is, for me, this is like the card of like on my manifestation board kind of thing. This is like my goal, because this is like, look at it.
Yep.
It's amazing. All those kids in the backgrounds are all like kids. I've got animals, children, hubby,
Totally.
life. You know what I mean?
More
Yeah.
cats.
Yeah, more
More
cats. There's
cats.
no cats in it. There should be cats. The cats are hidden within the tree of life.
Just draw
But
one.
yeah, so I think these are really great cards. So, and also it's Spirit's way of like keeping your head up. Like, all is well. Trust us. Just don't break into the shop because it's closed. It's closed for
Yeah.
business. So don't get arrested.
Yeah,
Honor the
nannies
boundaries
are
of the
no good.
hours.
Totally. Totally.
Okay, well, maybe we'll end there. Wishing you all a happy Mercury retrograde. Happy rest of the year. We have another. I think we have next week. We're going to
We
be
have solstice next
yeah,
week, which is
solstice. So
going to
we're going
be
to be
its on
sharing.
its own.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully you can tend to yourself, tend to your boundaries, create the space that you need, and wishing you all a happy week.
Good luck. Love you.